The drama surrounding Sophie Cunningham reached a boiling point the moment a uniformed officer tried to push her aside during what should have been a moment of triumph for the Indiana Fever. The scene was as absurd as it was symbolic. There was Sophie wearing a leg brace, standing firmly at half court, waiting for her teammate Odyssey Sims. She wasn't causing a scene, wasn't storming the court, wasn't screaming at refs or taunting opponents. She was just standing there. And yet a cop tried to get her to move. Sophie looked him dead in the eye, clapped her hands, and refused to budge. That single act of defiance told the entire story. She wasn't going to be bullied, wasn't going to play along with a narrative, and certainly wasn't going to let anyone push her into the margins. For Sophie Cunningham, standing her ground wasn't just about that one moment. It was about years of being cast as the villain, treated as an outsider by the league, the media, and even its own staff. And the fans saw it too. Within hours, clips of the standoff went viral. Hashtags like #FreeSophie and WNBA exposed trended, and the conversation was no longer about basketball. It was about the league's credibility, because the truth is, Sophie Cunningham doesn't fit the mold the WNBA has carefully tried to create. She's outspoken. She's fiery. She doesn't bow to the league's curated image of who gets to be celebrated and who doesn't. She isn't Paige Buchers, the golden prospect they've been polishing up as the next face of the game. She isn't Angel Reese, the controversy magnet who thrives in the spotlight. Sophie is something different. Confident, unapologetic, unfiltered, and for that, she's been singled out. This wasn't the first time, and it won't be the last. Rival fans heckle her louder. Media outlets write about her harsher. And now, even security feels emboldened enough to treat her like a problem. But the irony is impossible to ignore. Sophie Cunningham trends more often than most of the league's chosen stars. Her highlights rack up clicks. Her interviews get replayed. Her name moves the needle. She's good for business, yet the league seems intent on branding her as an issue. The reaction online was instant and furious. Fans across Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube called out the hypocrisy. If Angel Reese had been in Sophie's spot, people argued, the narrative would have been about passion, leadership, and intensity. If Paige Buchers had refused to move, commentators would have praised her competitiveness. But Sophie Cunningham, standing on the court with a leg brace, was somehow framed as the problem. The double standard was glaring, and fans weren't having it. They tore into the league for humiliating her at a moment that should have been celebratory. The hashtags weren't just jokes. They were a collective indictment. The WNBA was being exposed in real time. What made the entire situation even more damning was Sophie's response. Or rather, her lack of escalation. She didn't shout.
She didn't shove.
She didn't create the drama. She simply stood firm, glared, and refused to retreat. In other words, she showed more composure and professionalism than the very officer who had tried to provoke her. That restraint, that quiet defiance, is what made the clip explode online. Fans recognized it wasn't Sophie who created the chaos. It was the league once again tripping over itself, and this wasn't happening in isolation. Fans immediately started connecting dots to similar incidents. Just recently, when officials claimed to feel uncomfortable with DeJane Carrington, security was rushed in to protect her. The league defended her. The Players Association rallied. Commentators framed it as unfair treatment against Carrington. But when Sophie found herself in the exact same situation, the response was silence. No league statement. No union outrage. No supportive headlines. The only people calling out the double standard were the fans, and they weren't shy about it. This is where the broader picture comes into focus. Sophie Cunningham isn't just an outspoken player who refuses to conform. She's become a litmus test for how the WNBA treats those who fall outside its preferred narratives. Pair her story with Caitlin Clark's, and the pattern becomes undeniable. Clark has been hacked, shoved, taunted, and targeted on the court more than any other rookie in recent memory. And yet, time and time again, the refs swallow their whistles and the league shrugs it off. Sophie, meanwhile, has been labeled the villain, mocked for her appearance, and treated as a liability. And yet, both Clark and Sophie are exactly the kind of players the WNBA should be celebrating. They're popular. They're marketable. They drive fan engagement. Sophie, even when sidelined with injury, generates headlines. Clark, whether loved or hated, is the biggest draw the league has ever had. But instead of protecting them, the WNBA seems determined to let them be mistreated. That isn't just unfair. It's terrible business. The fallout from Sophie's confrontation only underscored the league's dysfunction. Fans flooded comment sections with anger, not just at the incident itself, but at what it represented. Selective enforcement. Selective outrage. Selective protection. The WNBA had once investigated fans for booing Angel Reese, calling it harassment. Yet those same league officials stayed silent as Fever players, including Clark, were booed mercilessly off the court. They brushed aside flagrant fouls against Clark as just part of the game. And now, Sophie was shouted at by a cop for daring to care about her teammate. Fans connected the dots, and the conclusion was inescapable. This wasn't coincidence. This was a pattern, and it gets worse. Because while the league keeps insisting it wants growth, respect, and mainstream relevance, every viral moment tells a different story. Instead of trending for buzzer beaters, playoff upsets, or record-breaking performances, the WNBA is trending for mop cops and double standards. The Fever's playoff run should have been a celebration. Despite injuries, despite adversity, they pulled off a gritty win. Lexi Hull's game-changing steal should have been the headline. Aaliyah Boston's steady dominance should have been the talking point. Kelsey Mitchell's leadership should have been spotlighted. Instead, fans were talking about Sophie Cunningham versus a security guard. Once again, basketball was overshadowed by nonsense, and once again the league looked unserious. And yet, in the middle of it all, Sophie handled it better than anyone. She didn't fuel the controversy with a bitter rant. She didn't lash out at the media. Instead, she joked about how nervous she'd been, how much she'd sweated like she had played the game herself, and how the league was mad her team had won. In classic Cunningham fashion, she brushed it off with humor and subtle defiance. No matter what the league throws at her, she controls her own narrative. And fans love her for it. Every attempt to diminish her only strengthens her base. That's the great irony of the WNBA's approach. By trying to silence or marginalize Sophie Cunningham, they've only made her more popular. She's become the underdog hero, the player who won't conform, the athlete fans rally around precisely because she refuses to play by the rules of image management. The league thinks it's minimizing her, but in reality, they're creating a star. But that doesn't mean the damage isn't real, because casual fans, many drawn in by Caitlin Clark, are watching. And when their first impression of the league is a viral clip of a rent-a-cop trying to push Sophie off the court, they don't walk away impressed. They walk away convinced the WNBA is unprofessional, unserious, and incapable of protecting its stars. That perception is lethal. You can't build growth on controversy alone. You can't demand respect while humiliating your players. At some point, the gimmicks turn fans away, and that's why this matters. Sophie Cunningham's standoff at half-court wasn't just about one player and one cop. It was about everything wrong with how the WNBA handles its own stars. It was about the double standards, the favoritism, the selective outrage. It was about a league more interested in controlling narratives than celebrating the very athletes who bring it attention. And fans are no longer blind to it. They see the hypocrisy. They call out the contradictions. And they're holding the league accountable. So the question becomes, how long can the WNBA keep getting in its own way before the damage is irreversible? Do you think Sophie Cunningham is being singled out? Or is this just another case of league incompetence? Let us know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss a breakdown like this one.